This is London in the 1870s, not the London of postcards or monuments, not a city paused in history. This is London while it is working, before the day officially begins, before offices open, before most households wake. The city is already in motion, not loudly, not dramatically, but steadily, purposefully. Every movement here responds to pressure. Space is limited, time is narrow, delay carries consequences, nothing waits. If you were placed here without warning, the first thing you would notice is not the architecture, it would be the pace. People move as if they are late for something, even when they are not. They do not stroll, they adjust, they anticipate. They avoid standing still, because standing still blocks others. The city teaches this behavior early. We begin before dawn, when gas lamps are still lit and the sky has not yet decided to change color. Covent Garden Market, before the city wakes. It is just before 4 in the morning. Covent Garden is already full. This space functions as London's central wholesale market for fruit, vegetables, and flowers. What happens here determines what the city eats later in the day. Timing matters more than price. Freshness declines by the hour. Anything not sold quickly loses value. This is not a place for browsing. The piazza and surrounding streets are filled with horse-drawn carts, hand-barrows, porters, buyers, and commission agents. There is no separation between pedestrian space and workspace. Everything shares the same surface. Stone paving is wet from overnight cleaning and runoff. Wheels grind across uneven ground. Crates are stacked high, then dismantled just as quickly. Prices are called aloud because discretion wastes time. Movement here follows temporary channels. They are not marked, they are learned. If someone stops in the wrong place, trade halts behind them. The response is immediate. A look, a word, a shoulder brushing past. No one apologizes. Porters move continuously. Their routes are memorized. They do not look down. They do not hesitate. Their work depends on strength, balance, and timing. Buyers inspect, produce by touch and sight, not ceremony. Bargaining is short. Delay means loss. Children appear at the edges. They carry messages. They watch carts. They learn where it is safe to stand and where it is not. This is training, not play. The sound is constant but purposeful. Shouts signal price, warning, or right of way. Silence would slow the flow. The smell of gemal waste, damp straw, animal residue comes from volume and repetition, not neglect. Everyone here is already working. Everyone is already behind schedule. Everyone is already carrying the weight of the day ahead. As daylight approaches, the pressure does not ease, it shifts. 7 dials, where space compresses, moving north from Covent Garden. The space tightens quickly. Within minutes, the wide flow of the piazza collapses into a junction where 7 narrow streets converge around a single point. This is 7 dials. The design is deliberate. Traffic does not pass cleanly through. It slows, overlaps, and folds back on itself. By the 1870s, the surrounding streets are densely built and heavily mixed. Lodging houses sit above small workshops, and street-level trade rooms are subdivided. Occupancy is high. Domestic life pushes outward because interiors cannot contain it. Doorways, thresholds, and corners become extensions of the home. Stand at the center and look outward. Sight lines are short. Each street bends quickly. You cannot see more than a few dozen yards at once. This shape matters. Intersections like this concentrate people, messages, and opportunity. Hawkers position themselves where foot traffic hesitates. Repair work boots, clothing, small goods apparates, where stopping feels natural. Income here depends on position and timing, not scale. Observe how locals move. They cross diagonally, cutting angles to avoid congestion. Outsiders move straight and stall. Children linger at edges, watching bodies step forward only when gaps open. This is not chaos. It is a compressed system with its own rules. The air feels heavier than Covent Garden. Not louder, but closer. Sound does not project. It overlaps. Conversations layer on top of one another. Disputes surface briefly, then dissolve as space reasserts control. Smell collects here. Food, damp clothing, waste. Not because of neglect, but because air circulation is limited by height and proximity. Today, Seven Dials is open, paved, curated. Sightlines are long. Crowds are managed. In the 1870s, this same geometry was pressed inward. The street did not offer relief. It taught people how to stand, when to move, and how to survive inside very little space. From here, the city grows denser still. Whitechapel and Spitalfields, density without escape. Now we move east, not because the streets narrow further, but because too many people are held inside them. By the late 19th century, Whitechapel and Spitalfields rank among the most densely populated areas in London. In some streets, hundreds of people occupy a single acre. Housing absorbs as many as it can. The rest spill outward. Look up at the buildings. Terrace houses rise close together, 3 to 4 stories high. Windows face windows across narrow gaps. Many interiors are subdivided again and again. One room becomes two, two become many. Stairwells never rest. Doors open directly onto the street because there is nowhere else for life to go. This density carries consequences. In the winter of 1871 to 1872, London is struck by a severe smallpox epidemic. Overcrowded districts are hit hardest. In Whitechapel, cases cluster by address, not chance. Inspectors' record rooms where the sick and the working share the same air. Notices appear. Families adjust. Work continues. Watch the street. People wait outside lodging houses, workshops, hiring points. Movement slows, not from obstruction, but from volume. Children sit on steps, hold places in queues, run messages between adults who cannot leave their spot. Women cook near doorways. Men circulate, scanning for work, listening for names called. The population is mixed. Long-settled Londoners live alongside Irish laborers, Jewish immigrants from Eastern Europe, dock workers, tailors, hawkers. Languages overlap, customs differ. The street becomes common ground because private space is scarce. People keep moving to avoid being counted idle. They share information quickly. They notice illness early. Survival here depends on awareness, proximity, and timing. The street does not collapse under pressure. It holds it day after day until the city is forced to respond. And feeding this many people requires something else entirely. Transition forward before we move on. Pause for a moment. Think about this. How do you feed a city of this size every single day without refrigeration? In the next part, we step into the system that answers that question. We go to Smithfield, where the city feeds itself long before most people wake. Before dawn returns, London eats. Not politely, not cleanly, but efficiently. To understand how this city survives, you have to follow its food. And that path leads to Smithfield. Smithfield Meat Market, feeding London before sunrise. It is shortly after 2 in the morning. Smithfield is already awake. These hours are not accidental. Meat must move before daylight, before heat, before crowds interfere. London wakes later. Smithfield cannot afford to. Step inside. The ground is stone, darkened and slick. It has been washed repeatedly, but never cleaned. Water runs constantly, carrying blood, fat, and waste toward drains cut directly into the floor. Straw and sawdust are scattered to slow slipping, then trampled flat within minutes. Boots lose traction. Men adjust their stance without stopping. The smell arrives first and stays. Raw meat, damp hide, animal waste, wet straw. Under gaslight, it thickens. There is no attempt to mask it. This environment is assumed. Work is designed around it. Look up. Carcasses hang from hooks overhead, swaying slightly as porters pass beneath. Knives flash, disappear, reappear. Iron rails ring as meat is moved along fixed paths. Carts queue outside, then empty quickly. Delays are not tolerated. A late delivery here affects markets across the city. By morning, accidents happen. Men slip, loads swing, cuts are bound quickly or ignored. The work does not pause. Tools are wiped, not replaced. Others step in. The schedule holds. Police presence focuses on flow, not safety. Their concern is congestion, not injury. Order here means continuity. Smithfield shows you something essential. Feeding London requires risk, repetition, and acceptance. The city absorbs this cost quietly before most people wake. When the market clears, the work does not end. It spreads outward, toward warehouses, toward carts, toward the river. Moving toward the Thames, the city's arteries, as Smithfield empties, carts turn south and east. The city exhales. Meat, produce, and goods move through narrow streets toward storage and distribution points. Wheels grind, horses strain. Drivers shout warnings rather than instructions. Pedestrians adapt. They step aside instinctively. No one asks for space. They take it when it appears. This movement reveals something about London. The city is not organized around comfort. It is organized around flow. Anything that interrupts movement becomes a problem to be corrected, and all of it eventually leads to the river, St. Catherine Docks, where the Empire touches London by the 1870s. St. Catherine Docks operate as a controlled gateway for high-value cargo: tea, sugar, tobacco, spices, wool. Goods arriving from across the empire pause here before spreading inland. The docks are enclosed, gated, and guarded. Speed and security shape everything. Look at the structure. Brick warehouses rise directly from the water's edge. Openings are narrow. Streets bend to accommodate cranes, carts, and storage, not foot traffic. The basin is crowded with masts and hulls. Cargo moves vertically and horizontally, lifted, swung, lowered, according to fixed routines. Nothing is improvised. Now watch the labor. Work here is not guaranteed. Men gather daily at dock gates and along nearby streets, waiting to be selected. The process is brief. A nod, a name, a gesture. Those chosen move immediately. Those passed over drift away just as quickly, scanning for other work or returning to lodging houses. The street absorbs both outcomes without comment. The ground tells you where you are. Planks near the water stay damp. Stone farther inland is stained by cargo residue and river runoff. The smell is specific: wet rope, tar, wood, raw goods. Sound behaves differently here. Chains tighten. Counts are shouted. Water strikes stone. Then sound breaks into open air. People mix by function, not community. Dock laborers work beside sailors from multiple regions. Clerks appear briefly, then vanish into offices. Carmen guide loads inland. No one stays long unless they must. This district feels temporary because it is. Goods arrive, pause, and leave. Workers come and go. Risk is routine. When the docks slow, the city waits. When they move, everything else follows. But not all solutions rise above ground. Some of the most important systems disappear beneath it. Victoria Embankment, order built underground. Now the city changes its method. By 1870, the Victoria Embankment opens as one of the largest engineering projects London has attempted. Its purpose is not beauty, it is control. Flooding, sewage, traffic, stability. Multiple problems are addressed at once. Stand here and look. The river is held back by a continuous stone wall. Above it runs a wide roadway and straight promenade. Gas lamps are evenly spaced. Trees are planted at regular intervals. This space is measured, aligned, finished. Nothing spills outward, but what matters most is beneath your feet. Below the roadway, sewage that once moved through streets and shallow drains is redirected into enclosed channels. Waste no longer pools where people walk. It flows away downstream, out of sight. Cleanliness here is engineered, not earned. Notice how behavior changes. People walk in lines instead of negotiating space. There are no carts forcing detours, no crowds waiting for work, no goods changing hands. Movement is continuous and predictable. This is not a place to stop. It is a place to pass through. Sound spreads instead of collecting. Footsteps fade rather than stack. The air feels lighter, not by chance, but because space and flow are controlled. This order has a cost. What is removed from view does not disappear. Sewage travels elsewhere. Congestion shifts inward. Pressure is relocated, not resolved. The embankment does not absorb the city's burden. It hides it. As afternoon approaches, this becomes a corridor of transit. Clerks cross toward offices. Officials move without interruption. Couples stroll briefly. The street teaches a new rule here. When systems go underground, the surface becomes calm. But calm does not mean relief. It means conversion. And by evening, that pressure resurfaces somewhere else entirely. Transition forward. As daylight fades, London changes purpose again. Work gives way to pause. Movement gives way to gathering. In the next part, we follow that shift westward into light, leisure, crowds, and controlled release. We go where pressure is no longer hidden, but transformed. Leicester Square, Soho, the night economy of Victorian London. As daylight fades, London does not rest. It rearranges itself. But the energy that powered the day does not disappear. It is redirected westward, inward, upward, into light. This is where work turns into watching, where movement turns into gathering, where pressure becomes performance. Welcome to the evening city. Leicester Square, designed to hold people still by nightfall. Leicester Square pulls people toward it. This is not accidental. Unlike Smithfield or the docks, this space is built to slow movement, not accelerate it. The open square draws bodies inward. Narrow surrounding streets funnel arrivals toward theaters, music halls, cafes, and bars. Gaslight keeps the area active long after sunset. Faces flatten under yellow glow. Shadows retreat. Depth disappears. People arrive with a purpose to stop moving. But stopping creates its own problems. Crowds gather, linger, compress. This is where authorities begin to worry. Not about crime first, but about concentration. One building becomes central to this tension, the Alhambra Theatre. When officials withdraw its license over the nature of its performances, the issue is not morality alone, it is scale. Too many people arriving, too many staying too long, too much pressure in one place. The license is eventually restored, not because concerns fade, but because demand proves stronger than restriction. The city learns something here. You cannot eliminate pressure. You can only manage where it collects. Watch how order functions in this space. Police presence is steady, but passive. They observe behavior rather than direct movement. Cabs slow traffic and create bottlenecks. Vendors work the margins. Queues form, break, reform as doors open and close. Music spills outward, then cuts abruptly. Laughter overlaps with argument. Light hides fatigue and exaggerates expression. The crowd is mixed by function, not unity. Clerks arrive after work. Soldiers appear in groups. Couples negotiate prices at entrances. Visitors hesitate. Pickpockets test gaps, then withdraw. These groups share pavement briefly, then separate according to access and cost. Alcohol alters posture more than mood. People linger. Movement stalls. Air thickens again, not from density alone, but from stoppage. Money flows steadily toward counters and tills. Fatigue is absorbed. Frustration is postponed. This is not relief, it is conversion. Soho, where control softens, but never leaves move slightly outward, and the city changes texture again. Soho absorbs overflow. Here, the streets are tighter, the crowd less formal. The boundaries between work, leisure, and survival blur. Food stalls operate late. Music leaks from basements. Lodging houses take in those who cannot afford distance. Transactions happen quickly, quietly. This district survives by flexibility. People arrive here after failing elsewhere. Missed work, missed chances, missed connections. The street becomes a second opportunity. Observe how people move. They slow, not because they are tired, but because they are deciding where to spend, where to enter, how long they can stay, how visible they want to be. Police patrol differently here. They intervene less in movement, more in disruption. Order is not silence. Order is containment. Arguments flare, then dissolve. Deals happen, then vanish. Faces change quickly. No one stays long unless they must. This is not chaos. It is negotiated survival, and it feeds directly back into the next morning's labor pool. Night as a system, not an escape. It is tempting to see Victorian nightlife as indulgence. It is not. It is infrastructure. The night absorbs pressure that cannot be carried forward. It keeps frustration from breaking daylight systems. It allows people to spend energy, money, and emotion, then return to work slightly lighter. Entertainment is not freedom here, it is management. By midnight, crowds thin, doors close, streets empty unevenly. Some people head home, others drift toward lodging houses, some remain outside, waiting. The city does not judge, it measures. The invisible workers of the night, While attention focuses on light and sound, other labor begins. Street cleaners appear. Waste is gathered. Spilled drink, broken straw, refuse from food stalls, all removed before morning. Gas lamps are maintained. Carts repositioned. Deliveries staged. The city prepares itself again. This work is quiet, intentional, repetitive. By the time London wakes, the night will be invisible, except in fatigue, empty pockets, and memory. Returning to the present today, London feels wider, cleaner, managed, predictable. Traffic systems replace negotiation. Sanitation is hidden completely. Food arrives, sealed. Work hours are regulated. Leisure is scheduled. But the patterns remain. Pressure still gathers where space tightens. Work still shapes movement. Entertainment still absorbs fatigue rather than removing it. Victorian London did not disappear. It trained the modern city. It taught systems how to hide, how to redirect, how to keep millions moving without collapse. Transition forward in the final part, we step back. We look at what this city became and what it lost, how reform softened edges, how danger was reduced, not eliminated, how memory was cleaned along with the streets, and why understanding these streets matters now. By the late 19th century, London begins to change its mind about itself, not all at once, not cleanly, but deliberately. Reform arrives not as compassion, but as calculation. The city has learned something important from decades of pressure. When systems are visible, they cause unrest. When danger is obvious, it demands response. So the solution is not always to remove the danger, but to hide it. Reform as reorganization, not rescue. Sanitation projects expand. Sewers deepen. Water supply improves. Streets are widened. Markets are regulated. Slums are mapped, inspected, condemned. On paper, conditions improve. Disease retreats. Mortality drops. Movement becomes smoother. Food arrives more reliably. Crowds are redistributed. But look carefully at how this happens. Pressure is not relieved. It is reassigned. The poorest districts are broken apart and dispersed. People are pushed outward, farther from work, farther from visibility. Informal labor is formalized, then excluded. Street life is narrowed into specific zones, specific hours, specific permissions. The city becomes calmer on the surface, but it is not lighter, it is quieter. What disappears from the street, certain things vanish first. Children no longer work openly in markets. Sick bodies are removed from doorways. Waste disappears underground. Slaughter moves behind walls. Hunger leaves the street and enters the home. This feels like progress, and in many ways it is. But something else disappears alongside it. Awareness. In Victorian London, danger was visible. You smelled it, heard it, stepped around it. You knew how the city functioned because it functioned around you. In the modern city, systems operate out of sight. Food appears without blood. Water flows without origin. Waste vanishes without destination. The street becomes clean, but also abstract. The cost of comfort. This shift changes behavior. People stop negotiating space. They follow signals instead. Rules replace awareness. Infrastructure replaces instinct. You no longer need to read the street. You only need to obey it. This is safer, but it also creates distance. The labor feeding the city becomes invisible. The risks become statistical. The suffering becomes remote. Victorian London trained people to survive proximity. Modern London trains people to ignore it. What survived the transition? Not everything vanished. Look closely and you can still see it. Pressure still gathers where space tightens, stations, intersections, queues. Informal economies still appear where formal systems fail. Crowds still reorganize themselves faster than authorities can respond. Street knowledge still exists among delivery workers, night staff, migrants, those who move constantly. The city still teaches lessons, just more quietly. Why this history matters now? It is easy to treat Victorian London as primitive, dirty, brutal, inefficient, but that city was honest. Its systems were visible. Its costs were shared publicly. Its failures happened in the open. The modern city is more humane, but also more distant. Its suffering happens elsewhere. Its risks are outsourced. Its consequences arrive delayed and diluted. Understanding Victorian streets reminds us of something uncomfortable. Cities do not remove pressure. They decide who feels it. Walking back into the present, when you walk modern London streets, you walk over layers. Markets that no longer smell. Sewers carrying what once pooled openly. Roads built to straighten movement that was once negotiated by eye and instinct. You walk on decisions, on compromises, on redirected burdens, on lives that learned how to survive without space, without safety, without pause. This is not nostalgia, it is recognition. Victorian London was not a failure waiting to be fixed. It was a system under strain, adapting in real time. It taught the modern world how to move crowds, manage labor, hide danger, and keep life functioning under pressure. The streets you know today are quieter because of what those streets endured. And if you listen closely, in crowded stations, tight crossings, late-night districts, you can still hear it. Not the sound of horses or carts, but the rhythm of a city that never stopped learning how to carry its weight.